everyone. Welcome to, and I don't want to be biased, but the best session of the day, all about essential skills training to support success in apprenticeship. I'm Chris, I'm the facilitator, and with me, more importantly, on my left, or your right, or your left, my right, I don't know. With me on the screen today is Casey Rusnak, learning and curriculum consultant at Bow Valley College. Casey, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Chris. Doing well.
Good. Can you let everyone know where Bow Valley is? You know, where you're coming at us from?
Yeah, we'd like to do a land acknowledgement if we could. So Bow Valley College is located in the traditional territories of the Niitsitapi Blackfoot, the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta, which includes the Siksika, the Piikani, the Kainai, the Tsuut'ina, and the A'ahe Nakota. We are situated on land where the Bow River meets the Elbow River, and that traditional Blackfoot name of this place is Mohkinstsis, which we now know and call the city of Calgary. The city of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3.
Awesome. Well, I'm happy to be with you today. Casey, I think we should kind of share our plan for today. What's our next hour looking like?
Yeah, well, we want to really talk about this Success in Apprenticeship project. It's a wonderful project that we have been able to run for the last 4 years or so. It's funded by the federal government through the Office of Literacy and Essential Skills, which is now known as the Office of Skills for Success. But what we're going to do today is talk about kind of that concept of essential skills and how this project is really built on a foundation in essential skills. We'll talk about where that project came from, its origins. I'd like to give you a little bit of an overview following that, just about what the Success in Apprenticeship project is all about. We'll talk a little bit about how that program was specifically delivered and some of the adaptations that we had to do as a result of the pandemic that we've all been faced with. And we have a really exciting instructor perspectives component that I'm really excited about, where we'll have instructors from one of our partners, our pilot partners, Saskatchewan Polytechnic, explain what they've done and how they've been involved with the project. And we'll wrap this thing up with a few preliminary findings of what we've been able to discover so far, and what you can expect looking ahead as the project reaches the final stages.
Casey, I'm excited. I'm really excited. I think this is a great overview. I'm ready to learn all about what this is. So maybe we can start with the basics, like why the essential skills? Like, what was the motivation for getting this project off the ground?
We know that literacy and essential skills, literacy and numeracy skills provide a solid foundation for individuals. We know that individuals that have strong levels of essential skills can really adapt to change really well, and often can increase their participations in all aspects of modern society. So they're really important aspects to reaching our full potential. We also know that individual success in learning and at work is supported by developing these skills and matching them to the level needed for safe and efficient and productive work. So it's a worthwhile area to kind of focus in our training and learning efforts. Another kind of key piece to this as well is really looking at how essential skills are measured. So when we're talking about measuring skills, we're really looking at moving beyond the basic level of skills to a more advanced level, and that's that threshold on a measurement scale that sits between level 2 and level 3. So it's the way that we can kind of help individuals identify where their skills are at, and then start to align some characteristics to skill use and some of the development needs that way. Another kind of interesting portion for those that don't know is that oftentimes we look at essential skills relative to skill demand and skill supply. So if we look at where skills of Canadians exist, there's a really big distribution across the different levels on that 5-level scale, where we have a large proportion of individuals that sit below that level 3 threshold, which is typically the level demanded of most Canadian occupations. So if we know that there's a little bit of a mismatch, what we want to try to do is bring people from that lower end of the scale into the level that we know is going to be demanded in the workplace, so that we close the skill gap, and that helps us then to better align people with different types of labor market opportunities and training opportunities, and allowing them to find success in both. When we talk about apprentices in particular, though, one thing that I think is worth mentioning is that the proportion of individuals at the lowest level of literacy skill typically decreases with education and exposure to education. In terms of getting people towards those higher ends of the scale, really becomes a matter of how do we enable individuals to access technical training opportunities, knowing that that experience is likely to increase their skill level. But yet we know that one barrier to successfully completing training at those higher levels could be low levels of essential skills. So if we can focus in on addressing that essential skill gap and providing training that helps to raise those skills and get people more comfortable, more dynamic with those skills, oftentimes we see better completion and success outcomes for individuals in those more advanced training opportunities. So we see this as a potential way to affect apprentices in a positive way by focusing in on essential skills.
So essential skills are, important at a foundational level. And obviously you guys have identified a gap in skill levels where hopefully people should be, and unfortunately where some people are with their level of skill when it comes to essential skills. And you've also, found an opportunity because of that. So my next question for you, Casey, is how did this specific project then begin to take shape?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Chris. For the past decade or so, Bow Valley College has been working and worked with the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology, NAIT. And what we've been doing there is piloting and refining an integrated essential skills program for first-year carpenters. What we've found through this approach is some really promising results in improving program completion rates and success on provincial exams. We've been able to increase those as a result of integrating kind of like an intervening remedial training component that focuses in on developing reading, document use, and numeracy skills. We identified early in this process that about 40% roughly of first-year apprentices were considered at risk. So that means they had a gap in one or more of these essential skill proficiencies, reading, document use, or numeracy. When we introduced the program originally in 2002, 2003, we saw a nice uptick, about 10 or 12% right away in terms of completion rate. That improvement has been sustained over time. And essentially what that's done is it created an impetus for looking at, can we do this at a larger scale? Are we able to, kind of replicate this model in a different way in different technical training environments beyond just that one context? So that really is how we lead into the Success in Apprenticeship project that we're talking about here today.
So I feel like let's do that. We kind of now have, the why and how it kind of got started and kickstarted with that. So why don't you share with us where it's at to date? What is the current state of this project?
When we talk about the project itself, Success in Apprenticeship, it's a national initiative, and the project itself has a few different goals and objectives. But the primary goal and objective here is really to develop and demonstrate the value, right, of a formalized essential skills training model that can be integrated either into pre-apprenticeship or apprenticeship training programs. And really the target there is for early interventions, so early on in that training, that technical training process for skilled trade occupations. A second kind of major objective of this Success in Apprenticeship project is to increase capacity for training providers to deliver that integrated literacy and essential skills training, which we know leads to improved learner outcomes and program completion rates. As a larger picture, in terms of increasing capacity, what we're been able to do through this project is bring on project partners from different training institutions and help them build both the knowledge of how to integrate essential skills into their existing training programs, their existing technical training programs, provide them with quality materials, resources, instructional materials in both official languages, French and English, that were available at no cost. So they had some pre-packaged kind of pre-developed materials that were directly aligned with that literacy and essential skills training to make it easier for them to pick it up and use it directly within their existing training environments. We're also focused in on providing them with data, some evidence, right, to support the investment in programming, because we know that this takes time and it takes some other resources to make it happen. So we need to have some evidence that supports the efficacy of the program, so to speak. And we really wanted to provide an assessment mechanism, to identify at-risk or potentially at-risk learners, and then also to identify how that skill gap is being closed, so that we have a good sense of how people are performing and what some of the outcomes are leading to in terms of some of these key performance indicators. So the project itself is trying to build capacity and provide value in those 4 major areas. Some details, around the project that are quite interesting. We provide training and learning materials for instructors to teach essential skills. So you're not going at this alone. This is something where we have a model, right, that we're using, and we're trying to implement that model on a larger scale. What we're trying to do as well is pilot the model with different types of pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship training providers, and trying to collect feedback from apprentices and instructors around that process. What's working, what's not working, what needs to change, and why. The program itself, and the project rather itself, has been operating since July 2017, when we first had our funding announced. We went through a couple of different phases in terms of development. That took about a year to do, to get the materials up and running, piloted out in a kind of a beta testing environment. But then we were ready to, in September 2018, actually move towards piloting. And we've been piloting all along for that period of time. So it's been about a 3-year pilot so far, with different institutions, different cohorts and intakes of apprentices or pre-apprentices that are coming through. And we're going to be piloting up till the end of this year, so till December 2021. At that point, we're going to move into our final phase of the project, which is about the data analysis, evaluation, and reporting that I alluded to before, which will take place between January and towards the end of June 2022. So we're just about finished that piloting process, but we're not done. And we're still looking for interested individuals that want to participate in that training as well. So we'll get to that a little bit later on, though.
Yeah, we will. I think so too. Anyone listening, make sure you remember that part, okay? We got more for you.
Nice thing maybe to talk about next, Chris, is just kind of what this model looks like. I alluded to, getting this model out and trying to do something at scale, so to speak. But the model is a pretty simple model that has 4 major components. One involves, the first step really is an intake assessment, where we really look at identifying at-risk or potentially at-risk apprentices. What we do then is, once we identify those at-risk apprentices, is we do an interface with them. So the instructor will meet with the apprentices and encourage their participation in a training program. And then we integrate the training directly within their technical training period. And this equates to about 20 hours of integrated training, where training is delivered usually in about 1-hour modules, and is as best as possible aligned with what the apprentices are learning at that stage of their technical training period. And then following that training kind of component, we do a post-assessment. So this is where we're measuring learning gains, and also, kind of integrating some of this final assessment piece as a preparation for certification exams, etc. We talked a little bit about the training previously. It might be worthwhile here to just talk a little bit about what kind of learning materials are available in the model. We've focused in, as I mentioned previously, on reading, document use, and numeracy as the 3 skill areas. All of the learning materials are very skills focused in those 3 skill domains. We have also made sure that this is very contextualized into the trades. So we've chosen topics that are relevant to all trades, but that are contextually focused on construction and mechanical trades. What we're doing as well with this is we're trying to create a set of what we call dynamic learning materials. So they're not, you're not required to kind of start with one and go all the way through the curriculum and do every single piece for it to make sense. They're rather like plug and play, where you can focus in on different areas of the materials depending on your needs or your interests, and they're not as sequenced as need be, but you're able to grab onto them based on topical relevancy or something to that effect. What I'll do next here is I'll just kind of delve in just a little bit more on the individual learning materials, so you get a better sense of what I mean when I refer to skill builders, workplace activities, or the math practice worksheets.
Examples are the best way to show things off, right?
Absolutely.
Let's see them.
All right, so skill builders, when we're talking about skill builders in the project, they really provide those underlying foundational strategies for using reading, document use, or numeracy skills. It's about the actual skill itself. You could consider these kind of a blend of a knowledge component, but also some examples on how to apply the skills, explanation on steps in terms of how do you activate the skill when it comes time to apply them. We have 15 skill builders in total. You know, this ranges from things like how to use technical drawings, entry forms, using keywords to improve reading efficiency, scanning strategies, a range of different skill builders that are functional and needed in those three big skill areas. The idea with skill builders as well, we don't want these things to take hours. So they're roughly about 20 to 30 minutes per skill builder. So it's something that can be digested in a relatively short period of time and then can be transitioned towards application, which is our next kind of piece of the curriculum that sits in the workplace activities. So here in the workplace activities, it's really about applied skills practice. These can be customized to a certain degree or adapted to different scenarios, but we've pre-formatted some scenarios to help instructors integrate those directly into technical training. And the idea here is that, these are about 15, 20-minute activities, gives it an opportunity to try something relative to a context. So for example, it might be, evaluating or completing an invoice for a particular job. So there's some information exchanged. The apprentice will go in and actually, fill out that invoice, do all the calculations and make sure it all matches up. There's answer keys, there's instructor notes that go with these. So the instructor can not only deliver, but debrief the answers with apprentices. And all the documents that are contained within these are what we call authentic documents. So they look and feel like realistic information that somebody would encounter in the workplace. Last but not least, we have some math practice worksheets that are quite valuable. We've had a lot of feedback from both our advisory committee in the project and from our pilot partners that, just more drilling and practice on some of the math concepts, those foundational math concepts are really valuable. So what we've done here is we've created a series of different math practice worksheets that does just that. These are about 15, 20 minutes long. They're, again, focused in on different topics that are relevant to the type of math skills that technical training would activate.
I remember when I was first learning about essential skills and we were talking about numeracy, somebody was like, when it's almost lunchtime, you're counting down the minutes, what are you doing? And I was like, well, I was waiting for lunchtime. They're like, yeah, but you use numeracy. And I was like, oh, you're right. Casey, every new project obviously has challenges and learning experiences, right? Was it Mike Tyson who said like everyone's got a plan and take a punch in the mouth? Was that him? I don't think I came into here thinking I was going to be quoting Mike Tyson, but obviously, every new project goes through adaptations and different, kind of versions of itself. And I feel like I doubt you were thinking a pandemic was going to be one of the things that got in the way of a project like this, but like maybe you could share with us what are some adaptations that you've made over the course of this project, both like before COVID hit and then even, after the pandemic changed things up too. Yeah,
no, that's a really good point, Chris. I don't think anyone anticipated both the scale or the duration of the disruption that the COVID pandemic brought on to people. But the good thing was, I think we've had a really adaptable team, and that includes our pilot partners who've been willing to try some different things and really make this continue to work with these adapting kind of scenarios. So the best way to maybe paint a picture of that adaptation would be kind of to talk about where we were before COVID, and then how we've kind of moved into delivery, during COVID, considering that we're not fully out of that yet, even though we're getting closer.
So close.
Yeah, so close. When we talk about the Success in Apprenticeship project, it was originally conceived to be kind of more like a traditional program, and traditional in the sense of all the skills, the essential skills training was delivered face-to-face. The instructor would deliver that training directly to apprentices. There'd be that immediate opportunity to receive feedback, have it occur during and within the classroom time. or within the classroom space if it was happening outside of a classroom time. And it was somewhat easy to access because it was all paper-based. So the materials were in hand, they were printed out easily, kind of, as I mentioned before, kind of pulled and played during the learning process. So we could make that fairly easy for folks to do while in place in that technical training area. So as you might expect, when we started to encounter this change with COVID, we had a big challenge on our hands. We were only able at this point to do remote delivery. And what we've had to really focus in on is integrated training, just given the increase in time constraints that kind of not only exist on a regular basis with technical training, knowing that technical training is quite involved and there's not a lot of time to cover what's mandated by technical training bodies. So to fit an additional period of time in and around that was very difficult. However, to integrate that training and still cover the technical training components that you're mandated to do seemed to be the way we could get this off the ground. So that's been a successful adaptation. And of course, the big one is moving all these materials online, right? How do we get these materials online? But how do we also enhance the materials for online use? These were paper-based materials after all. So we needed to change a little bit of how we designed and how we distributed these materials, and had to include a lot more interactivity with the materials, because it's not just about reading online. We want to have some active learning occur there so that the learner can actually become a little bit more engaged with the material as they would in a face-to-face classroom, but now, of course, doing that more on their own online. As I talked about the program delivery, what we've encountered through this project is an evolution of that model, that four kind of component model that I talked about earlier. We've really looked at the delivery model itself, growing from a traditional standalone to an integrated and a remote standalone model. The delivery modes have increased from face-to-face to also include a hybrid online. And the learning experience has gone from being real-time, in place, very synchronous, to being sometimes anytime and asynchronous, and also a blend of those two models. So we've been, I think, to our own credit, very open to change and trying to be as flexible as possible to do this. And that's also, again, speaking to our pilot partners, definitely, to their credit, they've been just as flexible, just as willing to try some things and do things differently to make this work, seeing that there is some value to this training for their apprentices and their learners. Just to kind of wrap this piece up, I'll just kind of highlight a few successes. Institutional support for essential skills has really been strong, particularly in terms of integrating this alongside technical training. So as the project started in its original iterations, we've had good traction, I think, with programs that understand the rationale behind why we want to maybe approach essential skills training as a function of technical skills training. The two go hand in hand very neatly. Generally speaking, we've had a very positive reception from apprentices who have taken the training. They see some value in it. They see the relevancy. And because we've done, I think, a decent job of contextualizing the learning, it doesn't seem so out of place. It's something that fits with what they're doing on a regular basis on the technical side. And one nice success here is we've had some unanticipated development of new models, as I mentioned before, for training program delivery. So we wouldn't have, I think, thought of this without COVID. But it's really that unanticipated development that is really a big success of the project, and how it kind of shines a light on what's possible for these models moving forward. But as we all know, Chris, right, every success typically has a challenge associated to it as well.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. You know what I mean? You got to balance a little bit of both. That's what makes it fun, right? That's the whole fun in it.
And, I think if we don't focus in on the challenges, it doesn't allow us to adapt to them or address them in a meaningful way. So, one challenge that we've had is really reaching or embedding the training beyond year one, level one apprentices. So for those that are at the latter stages of their programming, this training is a little bit less, I would not relevant, but a little bit less timely. meaning that, they've already gone through a process of skill development. What we're focused on is early intervention. So it doesn't make as much sense to focus in on the back end of a technical training program. It makes a lot more sense and has a lot more relevancy and urgency at the front end of a program. So really, it targets that pre-apprenticeship in year 1 or potentially even year 2 at the furthest along type of apprentice. The use format of learning materials was definitely defined early on. We knew we were going face-to-face, and we know we were doing paper-based. That wasn't possible through the pandemic. So having that deliberate design of material was more difficult after the fact than it would have been in that development stage at the very front end of the project. And through all this change, I think there's been periods where individuals have experienced heightened stress. There's been too much change happening, or what feels like too much change, and the pace of change has been quite quick. And the integration of technology that maybe you weren't anticipating, but now you're even more reliant on, or it's completely necessary to execute your participation in these types of initiatives. People have to get comfortable with that, and that this creates a challenge at times. And then, of course, we know that there's access and limitations to technology, to internet bandwidth. You have distraction, right? If you're kind of locked down at home sometimes. So how do you deal with all those pieces? There's all been realistic challenges that we've had to face in the project. But again, we've been able to kind of roll with those and have seen some positive outcomes as a result of our flexibility and adaptation, which again, we're quite excited about and quite proud of the work that we've been able to do there, and proud of the work that the pilot partners have been able to do in this space.
All right, Casey, I love this. I love this whole concept. I really like we've taken it. I like the motivation behind it. But I feel like for me and everybody watching, for us to kind of get like a deeper understanding of the project and like its implications, I think it's time I chat with a few of the instructors. I've been on the front lines in the classrooms with the apprentices. So you mind if I go have that chat?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that.
All right, let's do it. All right, so we are here with two leaders in the world of essential skills education in apprenticeship training. We've got Corey Moore, program head of carpentry at Saskatchewan Polytechnic in Moose Jaw and Regina. And we've also got Ryan Huyenga, program head carpentry of masonry at Saskatchewan Polytechnic in Saskatoon. So fellas, Casey and I just spent the first little bit chatting about the essential skills and the motivation and background to this project. And then we kind of talked a little bit about like what's been done so far, where is that now, and like some of the tweaks that have been made along the way. But I really wanted to chat with you guys, the ones on the front lines, engaging with the apprentices, implementing the programming, and kind of like seeing the results firsthand. So let's talk about it. Maybe Corey, we could start with you and talk a little bit about the like delivery of all of this. Like, why did you choose to get involved with this project? Like, what motivated you to get involved, like as an institution or a program?
Well, I think in the beginning, essential skills was something that we didn't think about much or talk about much or even consider in our training. When we were contacted by Bow Valley about this pilot project that they had in place, we saw some benefits that could come from that we hadn't otherwise considered. So once we found out a little bit more about that project, it sounded interesting. I think in our world, often our apprentices maybe have some time between when they were in high school and when they come to our training, and sometimes there are some gaps in those essential skills areas that we don't address in technical training. So when we saw an opportunity for these apprentices to be able to participate in some extra training in kind of the three main areas that Bow Valley focused on, which was document use, reading, and numeracy, we thought, that's awesome. Those are three areas that would be a huge benefit to our guys. So when the opportunity came up, we jumped all over it, and we incorporated it into our training. So it was awesome.
Ryan, after like deciding to take something like this on, right? You acknowledge, the impact it could have. What worked best for you and then your apprentices when like then addressing and delivering the essential skills training? Like, what did you do? How did you do it? Why did it work well? Kind of take us into the process of that.
Yeah, for sure. So we tried a number of different options. So from the very beginning, of taking on this project, we had two kind of main ideas of what we wanted to see in essential skills. And one was to teach essential skills as a separate thing apart from the curriculum of the apprenticeship. And so we would have things like some drop-in sessions for apprenticeship, maybe some noon hour sessions that if they wanted to drop in and learn some of this essential skills. So we tried that approach. We also tried approach to teach it to the entire class, kind of integrated into the curriculum. So for example, if the instructor is teaching construction documents, then he might bring up the essential skills on document use and work through that at the same time to kind of work at it together in the curriculum all at the same time. Both options worked well, and we found that probably integrating it into the curriculum worked maybe a little bit better because we could reach a lot more apprentices. And even those apprentices who maybe they didn't feel like they needed to work on these essential skills, they're still given the opportunity to work on these things as it's relevant to their training. But the drop-in sessions worked well for other students. So really maybe some sort of hybrid approach worked well in that. I mean, the pandemic changed things, obviously. So we had to think about how these essential skills are going to happen remotely. And Bow Valley did a really good job working on the resources for remote learning with a website and working on the skill builders. And so we really were able to help our apprentices like drive them towards these resources. We would have Zoom sessions with an instructor after class that they can drop in and work on these essential skills. So, you know, we tried a number of different approaches. We haven't totally maybe nailed down the best approach, but maybe in the future, a hybrid is something that might work well, right?
I mean, look, with every pilot program, I think that's going to come with hiccups in learning experiences, right? You know what I mean? That is as kind of to be expected. And I feel like COVID this year kind of was the ultimate hiccup, you know, like the type of hiccups that you can't just like get rid of by like drinking some water, like they just stuck with you the whole time. It's just a different situation. You know what I mean? So like Corey, Ryan mentioned, you know, the actual tactics of getting these this information to the apprentices had a lot of different, I guess, angles to come at. And then one ended up being the remote learning. Could you maybe talk to some of the challenges like that potentially brought up, or even some challenges that, you know, happened or that you felt happened when it was back in the like in-person delivery as well?
For sure. And further to what Ryan said, I mean, yeah, we tried two approaches with this, and they were actually two that were suggested by Bow Valley, which was the standalone or the integrated training. And I think one of the bigger challenges with the standalone was recruitment a little bit. We've got these new apprentices sitting there; they're overwhelmed already. They've got a lot of content to go through, and now we're asking them, or we're talking to them about this extra work. And so the standalone portion where we would do it after class or maybe in an evening, you know, they weren't maybe as keen about doing something extra as on top of everything else that they were already going to be working on. So maybe a little bit of a challenge on the recruitment piece there. What we did though try, what I think I would say we had better luck with, is the integrated training, where for the most part the entire class was involved, because we were doing it during our day. We were integrating it into, as Ryan mentioned, we were integrating it into our existing training. We were highlighting some of the skill builders and some of the workplace activities where it fit into our curriculum, and it worked great that way. Probably the challenge there, however, would have been time. Our levels of training, which are 7 week long for our apprentices, are rather full. So to incorporate some of this additional training, I mean, it took some time. It maybe cut into a little bit of the theory that was already happening, although it was supporting it, maybe into a little bit of the practical component, you know, the shop time that the apprentices were in there. So it was a little bit bigger time commitment. which would have been the challenge with the integrated part of the learning. But overall, I mean, it still worked. We adapted a little bit. I mean, the first delivery, the first time we tried this, definitely isn't how the most recent delivery went. So we've made, as you mentioned, with any pilot program, there's some changes, and I think we tweaked along the way to better suit the apprentices and get that interest from them. So.
That's what it's all about, right? I mean, trying to get something off the ground like this, it's making sure you evaluate what's the need, and then from there, how can we do it? And obviously the how part, really depends on the experience of doing it, right? Like that's the best way to learn, is get hands-on. Partly why I love, careers in the skilled trades so much anyway, you know what I mean? Is that's typically how you learn. So there's a lot of overlap, I think, from even implementing the program to the type of careers a lot of these students going into, right? So it all kind of works hand in hand. Ryan, can I get back at you for another question here? Kind of based on what we just talked about, everything kind of around like the delivery of this. Like with your experience with the project, what advice would you share with like other instructors who may be considering integrating essential skills training into their apprenticeship training delivery?
Yeah, that's definitely challenging because there's lots of options there. But I think what's worked well for us, and the advice that I would give, is to try to integrate the essential skills into the curriculum at a point that is relevant to the students. And kind of what I mean by that is, you take your curriculum that you're teaching your apprentices, you match it to an essential skill, and you integrate it in at the same time. So a good example would be during teaching the students how to read the National Code Book. So we might bring out an essential skill called skimming and scanning. It's about how to read documents, big documents, and how to find relevant information. So we would teach students how to read the code book. In the background, we're actually teaching them the essential skills of the skimming and scanning, essentially.
Yeah, that's a great example, right? And I'm sure those probably honestly pop up pretty much every class at certain points, right? Because I think the foundation of all this stuff is like these essential skills really are the basis of how we do a lot of this, right? And so, I like the covert way of doing it. You know what I mean? Like little agents basically pop in these little things of information into these different like lessons and teachable moments. You know what I'm saying? That's great. I kind of want to switch up a little bit from the delivery, and I guess more towards like the apprentice experience of all of this. Maybe I guess kind of looking at it more from their perspective. So Corey, maybe you could start us off here. What were some of the unanticipated benefits or like things you noticed about apprentice performance as a result of them participating in this training program, whether it was integrated or the kind of standalone sessions?
Yeah, well, I think a little further even to what Ryan said is that, and a benefit of this is that we were able to, in a lot of cases, integrate these exercises into the appropriate areas of our training where it fit. Bow Valley had come up with a whole bunch of these exercises, these skill builders, these workplace activities that were very trade specific. I mean, we could incorporate some of these exercises right into the training where it fits. So I mean, that was a benefit for us because it gave us an opportunity to provide some extra work, some extra help for our guys. So I mean, that was huge. And like I said, some of these exercises, they were trade specific. They were about our trade. They were about carpentry. There were other ones about electrical. There was other ones about mechanics. There was all kinds of an assortment of different exercises. So that was great. Another benefit, and I don't like to talk too much about benefits during a pandemic, but there was another one here, and as a result of what happened, Bow Valley sort of had to pivot as well and be able to look at a way to provide this training still in an online training environment, and they did a great job of that. They were able to put in very timely fashion, all of their skill builders, their workplace activities, and the math exercises online into a website called Success for Apprenticeship, which made it great for us to be able to get these to our apprentices. It was awesome because our apprentices, we could tell them to go in and do a few of those exercises in the evenings on their own. They would get immediate feedback from doing those exercises. I mean, it really benefited the delivery of it. Before, in the integrated, in the classroom version of this, I mean, we were we were handing out paper copies of this. We were going over some directions with the students. We were giving it to them maybe to work on that evening, and we were going over it the next day. This way, and I mean, guys just like that. Apprentices they like that immediate feedback. So they get to do these questions, and they get to find out whether they did them right or wrong. So I mean, that was a hidden benefit inside of a pandemic world. So.
Look, it's always important to try to find the silver linings, right? It kind of sped up progress, right? And sped up the development of something that, could have potentially taken a little bit longer, but out of necessity kind of got fast tracked. And like you said, the benefit kind of came with being able to kind of get the turnaround a lot quicker. Ryan, this is a question that I really have, because I'm like kind of curious about this. And I think a lot of our discussion has actually kind of answered it for me, but maybe when we talk about one specific side of this, it might come out. But I was really curious about like getting buy-in from these apprentices. And we kind of addressed it earlier. And I think a lot of it was addressed when you were able to kind of make it into like a more integrated experience, where it was just kind of part of the program for them. But for any of the things that were kind of extra or maybe standalone or anything like that, what types of conversations did you have? Did you have any strategy that you guys used to try to encourage them to get that extra training, if that was the route that they were, going to take with this?
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's definitely was a challenge at times to get the buy-in from the apprentices. And I think really what we did is we tried to explain what essential skills are and how they would be valuable for them in their careers. And I think when, if you just start talking about essential skills, a lot of the apprentices wouldn't know what you're talking about, right? And maybe even some instructors might not even know what you're talking about. So you have to kind of break it down and say, hey, these are things that will help you. If you're good at these essential skills, this is going to help you in your career. If you want to be a superintendent, if you want to move up the ladder, working on these skills is really going to help. Not only is it going to help your careers, it's going to help you in your technical training. We also kind of gave an opportunity for extra help for those who might have been struggling. Kind of use it as an opportunity to say, hey, if you're struggling in your technical training, we might have these drop-in sessions that you can meet with an instructor and go over some things, right? So we kind of got buy-in that way. Lastly, we kind of talked about how the essential skills are part of the RSOS, the Red Seal Occupational Standard, and how it's as much of learning the trade as using a table saw as these essential skills. It's just a different tool in the toolbox, essentially. And so to just help them kind of see the relevant points of how it integrates into the trades. So
right, making it about them, their experience, and like their future success, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What advice would you offer apprentices across Canada, who may have an opportunity at some point to participate in similar essential skills training interventions or training opportunities?
The order of these questions seems to be flowing well, because I feel like everything that Ryan says, I just have a little bit more to, to build on, to follow up. And yeah, I think getting the apprentices to understand that this is just not extra work for them. I mean, try this out. This is only going to help you. It's only going to make things better for you. Trade related, more to what Ryan said. I mean, life related. This is going to help you in life. It's going to give you some skills that our technical training wouldn't have provided before. So yeah, my advice would be to check this out.
Yeah, for sure. And I could just add to Corey's response there. I'd give the advice to apprentices is, take all the opportunities you can to learn. Develop that lifelong learning attitude about the trade and about the essential skills, and that this is just part of that learning the trade and this lifelong learning, and to take every opportunity that you can to better yourself in your career. And this is part of that. So.
I love it. I got nothing more to add to those. Those are, I think, perfect pieces of advice. So you know what I think I'll do to close our conversation is I'm gonna say I lied to you. I'm gonna ask you one more question. All right. I think it's the type of question that they teach in journalism school. That's like the best kind, like a close-ended one-word answer. So that's what I'm gonna ask. Do you guys feel apprentices who went through this extra essential skills training are better equipped now to be successful in their field than they were at the beginning? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Look at that. Easy, right? I feel like that's the hard hitting questions we were trying to get to this whole time. You know what I mean? So there you have it, employers, pick your phones up. We got some apprentices coming through. I love it. Corey and Ryan, thank you guys so much for chatting with me. To everybody watching, I'm going to kick it back with Casey. And we're going to close out this video, chat with him about where he expects this where he expects this project to continue to go. So we're going to do that. You guys, thanks again. It was great to talk with you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Casey, I am back. I just had a great conversation with Corey and Ryan. We talked a lot about a lot of stuff, but really it all centered around the fact that they thought this training and this project was really beneficial for their apprentices. But if I'm honest, we we talked qualitatively. And so maybe you could test a little bit of our numeracy skills right here and bring in some numbers. What has the data said about the success of the project to date?
Yeah, so we've done a little bit of preliminary analysis as a result of where we're at right now. And, we've kind of broken down the analysis for you here in kind of a couple different ways. I'm going to focus first on pre-apprenticeship in that face-to-face environment. We've had about 3 instructors teach pre-apprenticeship. We've done 4 intakes, fairly decent number of pre-apprentices recruited here. And, we found that there's a fairly large number that were at risk. About 74% were deemed at risk.
Oh, wow.
We had a split in terms of delivery models. 53% did the integrated model, 47% did the standalone. So when we were talking about that evolution of models, we see how that was kind of split there. About 12 hours spent in essential skills training across all delivery models. When we talk about, quantitatively, what does this mean? We focused in on those apprentices that were at risk, that attended the training and that were able to increase their scores. What we found is that over the course of the training period, that about a 28-point increase in scores from pre to post testing for reading, 25 points for document use, and 35 points for numeracy. So if we look at that pre-test mean score, we see that these scores are quite often below level 3. We're starting to get close to that level 3 in the post-test for numeracy, and we're seeing a fairly significant jump. We're talking about 10% on that scale in that post-test for reading and for document use. So what we're getting is some movement up the scale, which is exactly what we want. And this is through, on average 12 hours. So it's not a lot of training. Of course, the more practice you have, the more focus you have, the greater and the more sustained that increase can be. When we moved to our apprenticeship side of things, we had quite a bit more instructors take part with apprentices, larger number of intakes, and about 300 apprentices that were recruited into the research study. Of that, there was a smaller proportion of those that were deemed at risk, about 57% only. And of that group, we had about 63% that participated in an integrated model and 38% that did that standalone. The training duration was a little bit longer on average across all delivery models, but nonetheless, we were able to get some pretty good results for a similar type of learner. If we look at the apprenticeship learners from all levels that were either at risk or that were not either, but that were at risk, that attended training, and that also were able to increase their scores, we're seeing that those score gains were fairly nice as well. In about that 30-point range for reading, document use, and numeracy. We're seeing the scores getting much closer to that level 3 threshold of 276 for the different skill domains. So again, what we're seeing here is this increase in a positive way along that scale for those that are participating in the training and being able to demonstrate that skill gain at the end of that as well. So early data is showing some really positive things for a subset of these learners. So we're really excited that the model is kind of holding true for that kind of subset as well. Remote is the other thing we were able to take a quick peek at. One thing that we've been able to kind of identify, even though we're not able to kind of crunch the numbers as effectively right now, is document use skills showing the largest increase between surveys. What's important to know here about the remote delivery is we've had to do a lot more qualitative surveys because we're not able to do high stakes face-to-face testing because of remote delivery. People just aren't in the same place. So we're using pre and post surveys in some instances to collect perception of skill change. And what we're seeing here is the largest increase in individuals saying, yeah, I feel like my document use skills are actually improving the most as a function of myself taking that training.
Casey, maybe to kind of start to wrap this up, you can kind of let us know, like, where is this going from here? I know you kind of alluded to the timeline earlier in this presentation, but what does the future look like?
As I mentioned at the beginning of our presentation here, we're in this piloting phase till the end of the year. We're doing some pilots in fall 2021, and there's opportunities for new partners to participate in piloting as well. So we're still looking for interested pilot partners that might be willing to try this remote delivery model, or potentially, depending on changing circumstances, try that original integrated or standalone face-to-face model as well. One interesting thing about the pilots is we are offering participant honorarium. We are offering some delivery partner stipends and instructor training to all pilot partners. So there's some incentives that are available to getting involved with the project. And there's also this ability to contribute back to the field of work and really inform how this model kind of consolidates at the end of the project. So there's a worthwhile kind of component there as well. I just want to kind of put out there, if you are interested in knowing more about this, definitely send us an email at successinapprenticeship@bowvalleycollege.ca, or even better, join us at the live Q&A today, June 15th, at 1 p.m. Eastern time, where we'll be happy to answer some questions. And both myself and the instructors, Corey and Ryan from Saskatchewan Polytechnic, will be there to answer any questions you might have, both about the project, where we're at, and maybe what some of these pilot opportunities look like. So certainly take advantage of that as we're looking ahead to the next couple of months. The last piece maybe that we can talk about is the evaluation phase that we're entering in January. As I mentioned before, this is where we're going to be able to do the more robust data analysis and get that reporting done so we can disseminate the project results and really get a sense of how well we were able to accomplish this objective of bringing this model to scale. Last but not least, we are going to release an open educational resource. So this is maybe exciting for individuals that are thinking about using some of these materials post-project. We will have a website available in English and French. It is Creative Commons licensed, so you'll be able to use this for non-commercial purposes, totally openly, free, and at no cost. It will contain all of the project learning materials. There'll be an informal skills evaluation there so that you can kind of replicate the model that we've stood up. The instructor tools and resources will also be available on the site, and a final project report that'll kind of detail, where we landed on everything based on where we started, all the changes and adaptations, and the successes, obviously, and some of the challenges that we've addressed through our work. So we're very excited about this open educational resource that's coming at the end of the project.
Casey, I heard a lot of incentives. I heard a lot of free. I heard a lot of excellent opportunities. I heard a lot of join us at the Q&A. I heard some, ways to reach out and contact you. I heard a lot of great stuff there. So for everybody watching, I think this project is really cool, Casey. I really like to kind of see, all the success you've already kind of had with it. And I really hope it kind of continues to help educate apprentices and get their skill sets up to a place where, they can be really, really successful in the work that they do. So I want to say thank you for your time, for sharing all this with us. I'll give you the floor to kind of round this out in case you want to redrop all those ways people can get in touch with you, or the best way to kind of get some more information, and then we'll close this out. Floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Chris. Yeah, no, we're so excited to be part of the Skills Canada virtual national competition this year, and appreciate the opportunity to talk about the Success in Apprenticeship project. But just to wrap things up, I just definitely want to throw out a big thank you to our partners that did the presentation with us today and provided that instructor perspective. Corey Moore and Ryan Hoyenga from Saskatchewan Polytechnic. Corey and Ryan have been instrumental in making sure that this runs really, really effectively at their institution. So thanks to both of them today for joining the presentation. And just the last note again, join us at that Q&A at 1 p.m. Eastern. And if you do want to reach out and get a little bit more information about the project, around the event today or outside of the event today, you can reach us at successinapprenticeship@bowvalleycollege.ca or drop me a line directly, krusnak@bowvalleycollege.ca. I'm always happy to have those conversations with people. So thank you very much. I think that kind of wraps it up, Chris.
I think it does. I think this is it. To everybody watching, hopefully we'll chat at 1 p.m. Eastern.